Welcome to our podcast, Something About Marys, where we are flipping the script on history, or should I say, her story.
That's right, Carrie. We're here to uncover the stories they didn't want you to know. You know, the hidden gospels, the ones buried under centuries of patriarchal power play, and a whole lot of religious dogma.
And we're not just talking about Mary Magdalene either. We are digging into the sacred, the scandalous, and the downright badass idea of Mary as priestess. These ideas have been overshadowed, rewritten, and forgotten entirely. So, sister, grab your chalice
or your coffee mug and join us as we reimagine the sacred feminine, one cheeky, irreverent conversation at a time.
Because here's the thing. This is not your grandmother's Bible study. This is a journey into truth, feminine empowerment, and it may be considered a little heretical.
Women all over the world are feeling the call to rise, reconnecting with the sacred feminine truths that have been buried for far too long. Welcome to
Something About Marys, uncovering the history they didn't want you to know.
And my name has been covered up with shame since ages. I've been locked up in these chains.
Welcome, everyone, to There Are Some Things About Mary podcast, presented from the Mary Magdalene Rising Collective. We are here today with Marguerite Mary Rigoglioso. I had to practice her name, but I think I got it right. She's PhD, the founder of the Seven Sisters Mystery School, a world-renowned teacher of sacred knowledge, and the foremost authority on the history of the virgin birth. A trusted mentor to people on healing and spiritual paths, she draws on her decades-long research and experiences with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, to help uncover their hidden, timeless teachings and apply them to our present-day needs. The award-winning author of several books, including The Secret Life of Mother Mary, The Divine Feminine Power for Personal Healing and Planetary Awakening, as well as The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception, Mary and the Lineage of Virgin Births, and she lives in Western Massachusetts. You are originally from the Bay Area, is that true?
Well, I'm originally from New York.
Oh, but you taught here in the Bay Area.
I did. I lived there for over 20 years. And I thought I would never leave, but here I am back on the East Coast.
Back on the East Coast. So we are so excited to have you as one of the first guests here on the podcast, because we had such a great conversation during our Magdalene Rising Summit, and I was just left wanting for more. How about you, Sandy?
Everybody was wanting more and more. People kept writing to us asking questions about you and wanting to hear more from you. So you were on the top of our list when we said we're going to start this podcast. And, we created something here that we wanted to be a little more casual and a little bit more where we can speak to each other and kind of learn about each other and dig into some of the topics that are in your book. And so we're so excited to do this with you. I mean, really excited. And because we think you're the coolest authority on divine feminine power. And because what's more empowering to women than creating life without a man? Come on now.
It's a star power. It's a Siddhic power. The Siddhis that they attribute to holy men usually. This is one of women's that seems counter-biological, but it really isn't if you know how to work with your energy system and your DNA.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating to us. And not that I'm at my age going to try that, however.
Well, Mary Mary's mother Anne did, and Mary's Aunt Elizabeth did. They were in their advanced years when they had Mother Mary herself and John the Baptist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So,
So,
Yes.
so there's no time limit on your womb health,
no, no.
right?
And I think, though, as long as you've been tending it all along the way, for those of us in the West, it would take a pretty big effort to suddenly go from, let's say, menopause to I'm giving divine birth. If
Right.
you haven't cultivated all the practices that, some of which we can surmise from the research and some of which we don't uh, have, but we would have to channel essentially. But we are piecing it together now.
Yeah, we're remembering. Thanks. So what was the beginning for you? How did you were raised Catholic?
Yeah.
When did you have a question when did that question come that you needed to find different answers to? When was that?
I think pretty much in college. I mean, I continued to go to Catholic Mass, and I was in a three-woman folk mass, the Saturday night folk mass, and that was really what was keeping me there. And after a while, I realized, okay, there's nothing else here for me right now in this. I need to go my own way, but it wasn't a spiritual way at that point, even though I kind of had, mystical tendencies, but it wasn't until years later that I really started having a spiritual awakening. And that's what, led me to the sacred feminine, the goddess, the realization that Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary had been there all along in my backyard and, many other things. So, I've studied through the Greek pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, many others, and then come to find out how it's all related actually to the Marys.
So you kind of came to this from a historic perspective rather than a religious perspective?
Yeah, actually, I came to it from, well, I would say I came to it from a spiritual, feminine healing path
Mhm.
perspective, where I started out looking into my own deep healing of the wounds and everything. And the first thing I happened upon was well, not the first thing, but I had, done therapy for years and so forth. But then I happened upon this therapist, Greta Bro, in the Boston area where I was living at the time. And she had this workshop on women and self-esteem that she was doing through the now defunct Interface Foundation. That was a great organization, though, back in the day. And I went there, and her whole thing about women and self-esteem is our self-esteem as women has been dealt a big blow by the missing and the suppression of the sacred feminine in all of our cultural and religious stories. And she said, did you know that underneath, all heritages, the goddess was originally there, and many places in the world still venerate her? And this was a whole revelation to me. And my world flipped right side up at that moment. And she told us books to go get. And I happened to be going to this California where this bookstore was. I was living on the East Coast at the time. And I looked at the work of Maria Gimbutas. Looked at the work of Barbara Walker. I got led into the work of Margot Adler and Vicki Noble and Eleanor Gaydon, a lot of these early spiritual feminist pioneers. And so and then I started with Carol Christ, the late Carol Christ. I went on a goddess pilgrimage to ancient Greece with her. I was in my very early 30s. And so it was partly academic, but partly spiritual, kind of at the same time. And then I kind of deepened into both until they really, really converged into the work that I'm doing at Seven Sisters Mystery School.
Wow.
That's so interesting.
It is.
There at the beginning of your book in chapter 1, and maybe I'm stepping on Sandy GG one. Yeah, there's the book. Yay.
There's the book, The Secret Life of Mother Mary. Yay.
I loved the book so much. I always listen in the car, and I don't get to take the practices to heart often. So I wanted to bring one of those questions that you had. I think you say for the Mary journal at the back of a chapter or and bring it here to us to answer right now in a circle format where we all get to answer the question, each one of us. And so in circle, how we are circle facilitators, we ask a question and we set a timer and you get to speak to the topic for 2 minutes. And then when the alarm goes off, we put up our hands and hold the space for whatever your share was. And then the next woman gets to go. Would you be willing to do that with us right now?
Oh, of course.
So,
Absolutely.
the first question was, who is Mother Mary to you? Who is Mother Mary to you? And so I don't know if you want to go first or if Sandy, do you want to go first, Sandy, or?
Oh, put me on the spot. Okay, I'll go first.
Okay, I'm going to set the timer. The timer's going.
Thank you. So, I never really identified with Mother Mary. I had a kind of a weird upbringing with religion. But my grandmother, she was very close to Mary, and I remember her with her rosary beads every single day, sitting there going through the beads. She said for hours she would do that one by one. She was very religious, and I think she harbored a lot of frustration because because she was divorced. She actually divorced her husband. I mean, this goes back when people really didn't get a divorce, but he was abusive to her and her
Oof.
children. And so she divorced him. And then in the eyes of the church, she was not allowed back in the church. And she was very hurt by that. So I feel like she resonated with Mary more than she did with the rest of the church. So she continued to pray to Mary and she would watch Mass every Sunday. I mean, she really wanted to be involved in that. So I kind of knew that it was super important to her. I remember her passing and I pinned a Mary medal on her so that she could have her with her. Like it was very important to her. Um, when I first saw Mary Magdalene show up for me, I felt that somebody else was with her, and I knew right away it was Mother Mary. So the two of them showed up to me, and because I resonated more with Mary Magdalene, but I know Mother Mary was there. It was like both of them. And so I know there's more for me to dig and learn about Mother Mary. And so that's why I'm so excited to learn all that you have to share with us. I'm done. I'm complete.
Wow.
Thank you.
Do some hands, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Marguerite, do you want to go next or do you
Oh,
want?
no, you go, Carrie.
Okay, I'll go next. Um, I was not raised in religion. I was raised by a mother who had left the Catholic Church because of divorce as well. So my mom had gotten a divorce, had 4 children. I'm the daughter of my mom's second marriage. So I feel like I was raised in an anti-Catholic, anti-establishment. My mom was very angry about the Catholic Church, had wanted to be a priest, was not accepting of the idea of a nun, was very talked all the time about how she threw up at her communion and like how she always felt very sickened when she would be making these promises that didn't include the feminine. As a little girl, I always identified as a witch. I've always identified as a witch for as long as I remember. And we would call Mary to our seances as little girls. And I never really thought about who we were, the name Mary in any way that it had to do with Mother Mary or the Bible in any, it just never occurred to me till I was an adult that probably I was calling in this entity. And that's why we were so powerful as little girls, because we could spell cast and we could do the most divine actions as little girls with the help of this entity that we would bring in, not realizing it all. So coming back to having Mary enter into my life and having asks around having conversations with religion, it has always made me feel very anxious. I never thought there was a door to religion that was open to me
Wow.
because I never thought there was even in circle. I'm allowed to keep talking, by the way. So I finished my sentence. So, and
It's like a yellow traffic
that
light.
was the yellow traffic light. I can actually just put my foot on the gas right now because I think I never thought there was a door to God that was open to me without giving me the title of sinner. Because I was born to a divorced mother.
Yeah.
I was born to a mother who had left religion. And then my mom was a single mom most of my life. So I only carried the title of sinner and never thought there was a place to enter that under the umbrella of God from that position. So I'm complete.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beam you, send you some love.
Thank you.
You have been heard. We're
Gosh.
witnessing you.
So Marguerite, your turn.
Oh wow, these are so moving.
They're
Well,
your juicy question. It's your
I-
juicy question.
I know I made it up, but it's like, well, I mean, I guess the short story, what I think about Mother Mary is here in this book, The Secret Life of Mother Mary, which is, my ode, my love letter to Mother Mary. But yeah, I see her as a spiritual woman who had many, many lifetimes to perfect her soul and to achieve what a lot of us are talking about these days, which is her ultimate ascension or her ultimate union with Mother Divine. She did do that. She walked her life on this planet as we know her as Mary, but it was the last in a long string of reincarnations. And she was a healer and a leader at that point. And then at her death passage, she actually did have that ascension into the realms of the divine. And so therefore she can continue to work with each of us, message us, heal us, come when called, and shine the light on the world that, hey, I'm available if you'd like my assistance. So she's a personal healer. She's a planetary awakener. She's an ascension guide. She's, a spiritual mentor. That's how I see her. And I experience her personally in all those ways. She's sometimes simply a mother to me who holds me and helps me heal. And then she's a spiritual mentor. She helps me have a sense of deep connection with the divine, and she guides my actions, my thoughts. She helps me bring in knowledge from the other realms. And she helps guide my ministry as a priestess, as a teacher, and what I'm doing with women today and men. So that's what I would say about that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Get the award music too. You can accept your prize.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
I love the award music. It makes it like such a grand ending.
yes. Yes, it does. Well, both of you said such moving things, and the piece about the divorced woman, the fallen woman energy, that is something that the Magdalene had pinned on her. Fallen woman, it's just so intense. I mean, I had a caretaker who was also divorced, and she felt a lot of shame. And I mean, these things are so twisted, what has happened in the religion that shall remain unnamed. And it's just been so damaging on so many levels for women. And that's why I've been doing this work. I know many others have, to rectify the image, the reality of Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. It's very important because as we rectify that, we rectify ourselves. We raise ourselves up. We become whole women.
Yeah. Even the idea of the rectification. I know in another book I read, it's like we may never, you come from a far more historical standpoint and you look at so many different points of view, but there is so many different stories. We may never actually know what is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. We may never be able to actually rectify that story, but also it's not necessary to know what was their truth because what we do know is their power to have a story that resonates forward and can touch so many women and allow us to take these ideas of shame and shed them and see that there were women at the helm. Like in your book, you do bring forward the idea that perhaps Mother Mary was actually at the helm of Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the truth of who they were is the truth of who we're becoming. And that's the message that they have
Hey,
given.
Mama.
Yeah.
Mama to that.
Okay, bumper sticker of the day. All right. We're always looking for bumper stickers. But you know, that is what I receive time and again when I go into my open state of consciousness with them, my oracle state. They're like, we are reflections of who you are and who you're becoming. As you raise yourself up, your awareness, your powers, so we are raising up. And as you raise up your image of who we are, so you are raising yourself up. That is a maxim that's in the Gospel of Philip about the mystery of how you grow as a spiritual adept. So we're all in this together with these Marys, raising them up, having ourselves raised up in the process, for our empowerment, for our better walking in the world, for our better living, for our ability to co-create, you know, what a lot of people are calling the new earth.
Yeah.
So I think it's so fascinating. I think it's one of those things. I mean, it goes back to for ears that can hear and eyes that can see. It's like somebody can hear all of that, or someone can read the book and just, if you don't get it, you just don't get it.
That's
But
right.
once you get it, you can't un-get it.
That's right. And here's the thing that I found, Sandy, you can get it at deeper and deeper levels. Like you can read the same thing that you read 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and suddenly it's a whole new reality. And this is part of the mystery tradition. You read these texts and this information, and you realize, oh my gosh, all of the stuff that I've learned since then is helping me to understand what they are really saying now at this rung, now at this rung. And it's pretty profound because there is a lot of extant material for us in the Gnostic Gospels, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Book of Enoch, in these other apocryphal Gospels. There's quite a bit of data there that as to what was going on by these sacred women and men, and what's available to us now.
I'd like to touch on that for a moment. You mentioned the Gnostic Gospels and texts. Is there anything in them that is specific to Mary, Mother Mary? Because I haven't really come across anything like that yet, or it's interpretation.
No, very much so. In the Gospel of Philip, we hear that there were three who always walked with Jesus: Mary, his mother, her sister, Mary, and Mary Magdalene. All three of them were a Mary, meaning they were all three priestesses of divine love, because that name Mary, transliterated through the languages, originates in Mary, which was a concept of divine love in ancient Egypt. So they were priestesses of loving, being loved, and being love itself, all at the same time. And they always walked with Jesus. So she's in there. And she's mentioned a couple of other times by Jesus, kind of tangentially. She's obviously mentioned a few times in the canonical Gospels. And John is where we hear that she's like, hey, there's no more wine. And he's like, wait a minute, it's not yet my time to do miracles. She's like, okay. It's like, okay, I'm going to do the miracle because I want everybody to be jubilant at this wedding. So, you know, yeah, she's there. She's in apocryphal, meaning non-official biographies. And there's a whole gospel dedicated to her, her conception by her mother, Anne or Hannah, and then her infancy and raising as a priestess, and her conception of Jesus, which was originally called Birth of Mary. It's now called the Infancy Gospel of James. So some people say, oh, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is the only gospel that is named after a woman. No, the Gospel of Mary was before that, but its name got changed, you see. So if you poke around they're there. You can get the information.
Yeah, you have to dig though, right? It's like
Yeah.
they don't have it's not well, that goes to the point also of how we're finding all of this in artwork and
Yes.
in books, but like hidden, like secret messages, like you have to figure it out. And there's so much in many artwork. You talk about the tapestries at the in the cloisters, and I've seen that before, and it would never occur to me what you explained in the last chapter, last or second to last chapter of the book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back there and look at those again,
Wait,
though.
is this about the unicorn?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's interesting because I have that picture up on my frame television right now. You can go to the Met and put it on your frame TV in your own living room if you want. But what is the meaning of this unicorn?
Right. I mean, so there's been a tradition in medieval, Europe of these tapestries featuring the unicorn and then a female figure, a maiden who's probably a virgin, and that they connected with Mother Mary in these ancient manuscripts, these illuminated manuscripts and so forth, that this virgin was Mother Mary and that the unicorn is connected with Jesus. That energy. There's so much more that can be said about this, but um, the what this shows us is a memory of fifth dimensional consciousness and ancient Lemuria, where creatures that we are not as familiar with in the third dimension dwelt, Eden. Okay, and the unicorn was one of them. So they were connected with grace. They were connected with sovereignty because the single horn is like the two unified into one. And they were always connected with these virgins. They would only come to the virgins because these virgins were essentially priestesses who were training themselves in a sovereignty practice of wholeness. Okay. So these are just some of the tidbits of how this is connected. And then we have the image of the slain unicorn, which is the one in the Metropolitan Museum's cloisters tapestries, unfortunately. And that's, the beautiful being of grace that is avariciously hunted and killed. And that's related to the story of Christ. But then the ones in the Cluny Museum tell a whole different story. It's a woman, this priestess, going through an initiation of the senses to open her consciousness so that she ultimately comes to divine wholeness.
And so the unicorn in the sexual sense is the unicorn a representation of the godly partner?
No, the
Okay.
unicorn is the relationship
I
of
just asked that because that's what I call a unicorn. Like that's in my girl groups, the unicorn is the guy who actually, like, I happen to be married to a unicorn, right? Like that he's all about the feminine pleasure and not about the masculine pleasure. So I think it's kind of an interesting, like, and
Yes.
for the representative, and here in the girls group where we're spilling tea, the unicorn is the man who will come in to please without his own pleasure.
Okay, well, good. I think it's probably multivalent. There's that energy of the unicorn. There's the Christic sacrificial energy. There's the gentle grace representing the inner wholeness of the woman. The woman who's resolved all of her polarities and dualities into wholeness, which is what Mother Mary had to do, and that's how she was able to give divine birth. She was able to unite the masculine and feminine and become the hermaphrodite, the androgyne.
And in a very trivial sense, how little girls are so into the unicorn.
I know, and they're into fairies because they know, they remember, they're drawn, they're attracted to this because this is the memory of Eden. This is the memory of not only the past Eden, but the future Eden, where we are going to, a higher dimensional way of living that is more in harmony, that is able to, we're able to see through the dimensions from third into fifth and that kind of thing. We're able to see and work with these beings and play with these beings. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem on the other side
of it.
related to this.
Fascinating.
Do
I
you?
actually picked up, I studied art history in college. It was a big, interesting to me. I studied archaeology and art history. So I also love the historical aspects of this. And after reading that chapter, it just really struck me. I had a teacher in high school, by the way, two teachers that I feel like were like divinely sent to me. They were trying to send me in a direction that is only resonating with me now. But I was working with them and we were studying a book called On Death and Dying. We were learning about peyote. We were learning like very unusual things for teachers to teach you. And then they took us on a trip to go to the cloisters and to go see those tapestries, which were incredibly beautiful. And I chose one of my favorite ones from there. But while I was reading through the book, I said, I want to reflect back, and I grabbed the history of art, which is this big, huge book, and I said, I want to go look at them again. You know what? It's well over 1,000 pages, and I could find nothing on that in it.
Yeah,
And
because it's a woman's thing.
it's unbelievable, though.
Tapestry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. It's incredible. I mean, I just plowed through 3 books on John the Baptist. One of them had like one sentence on the fact that he was divinely born from his mother Elizabeth. That's
Mm,
it. The whole entire freaking book of John the Baptist. I mean, the lack of curiosity, and one of them is a female writer, but you know, the door has had to be open to these other mysteries and women's realities, so that we can bring this to the table again and experience the bounty here and
yeah,
and balance things in our world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just take a quick break.
We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with more from our incredible guest, Marguerite. Welcome to the portion of the podcast where in post-production, Sandy and I just had so many more things we wanted to discuss about it. This is where we sort of spill our own tea. So, Sandy, I loved how you dove straight in with the idea that women could birth without men and that power. Like, what do you think of that? What would you do with that?
Well, first of all, I think I've always believed, I don't know always, but I want to say like at least the past, 10 years that I've been thinking about the divine feminine. In fact, I had this argument with my brother-in-law because I said to him, he's very like misogynistic, and he said that men have always ruled. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, you guys are in jeopardy because women are so much smarter now, and if we learn how to birth babies without men, you guys are screwed because we will not need you for anything. Like we are that self-sufficient. And he was like, oh, please. So the minute she said that, like that just kind of blew my mind because I was like, and there it is. And my other reason was like, hell no, I am not having babies. I do not care. Like the minute I turned 35, I was like, no more. Like I'm too old. I'm tired. I want to sleep late. I don't want to have to get up early or in the middle of the night. So,
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about how there's also that like legendary Wonder Woman type of idea where there was the island of only women, or
yeah.
even the more modern movies. Um, and that, like, I just don't know if I was the lone woman on the planet,
Mhm.
if I would not just like want to just survive, if I would even think about how to carry on the species. Like, it's such a deep idea of like trying to have, right, they were trying to birth pure specimens, and usually they birth themselves, like twins of themselves, right? And that
Yeah.
it's something more divine when they birth the male, and that's what the sort of story was around her. And I just loved it.
I,
I don't know, I mean, as a postmenopausal woman too, like I am really into my womb health and the idea of like purging the energies that are there that I don't want there, the energies of the rapists, the
Yeah.
energies of the molesters, the energies of men who wouldn't take no for an answer, even if they were my partners. Like, I would love to practice that kind of womb cleansing.
Yeah, same. Me too. I think that that's a really cool thing. Like, especially like you said, we've been carrying that around for, I'm in my 50s. I've been carrying that around and, shame from it and stuff like that. So it would be amazing to release that. And I do have to say, I am a little jealous when we talk about like womb work and doing the whole like following the moon and your cycles. And I'm like, can't do that anymore. It would have been cool
Yeah.
to know that earlier, but
Well, I don't even know. Like when I first read, I mean, I always have been very cyclic living, and my period was like clockwork on the full moon my whole life. And it was when I read a Kate Northrup book about cyclic living, which the name is just, it might be called cyclic living. I can't, it just left my head. And she talks about it. And I remember I was already had been without my period for like 10 or 11 months. And I thought, if I could just have my period one more time naturally so I could see where my cycle hit. And then I got my period on the next full moon.
oh wow.
So like maybe be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
But also like we still can be in that cyclic way, right? We can still, and like I think as a woman, when you had your period on the full moon, kind of showed you were as a leader in those times because it was off when most women would have their periods in the new moon.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting thing. Um, I also really love this idea that we discussed in the podcast about how women have really been dealt a blow to our egos and self-esteem through the suppression of the sacred feminine through time, and that like the sacred feminine is at the heart of every single heritage of person, that if
Yeah.
you go back far enough there was a sacred feminine in every heritage. Like that pisses me off.
It's crazy. Like the more I learn, the more there's just an endless amount of information out there, historically. And the more I learn, the more fascinated I am by, and especially in Marguerite's book, how she goes into like other women that have had a divine births. And it's like mind blowing because you're just like, this has been going on right under our noses. We don't even know it. How many people still even, maybe some people still
Right. And then
practice
there was
some way.
another divine birth at the same around the same time as Jesus.
Yeah.
And like that there was like that part, I just I had no idea. I had no idea. And I think what I really realized was I always knew about the goddesses. I always knew about Pachamama, or that the Native Americans revered the earth. I understood all that, but I also cellularly really believed the word myth.
Hmm. So it's very hard to like wrap your head around the
That
things
it
that
was
we,
actually real, that word,
yeah.
putting mythical in front of it, changed it. Instead of saying the historical goddess, the
But don't you
historical.
think it spread because of using the word myth? Like if back, people were like, this is truth, it would have had more, I think it wouldn't have spread as quickly or as
Oh,
easily.
like it might have died more
Yeah.
solidly that by keeping it alive via the idea of it being myth. And it's so true in our patriarchal society that like the shared word or the shared story over time has not as much value as the written word. And that
Yeah.
is really a casting system, right? That those who could write are the ones who got to tell the history, and those who could not do not.
Yep.
But the fact that Mary had a scribe, her
Mhm.
stories were written down. And I think Marguerite even talks about how one of her gospels was like a gospel around the birth of Mary was changed, right? Changed its name.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I it gets me going. It gets
I
me.
thought some other things that were really interesting about Mother Mary was that, and I'm not sure if it was from Marguerite or I learned this somewhere else, but and especially when I study the artwork and you you don't see Mother Mary in any other position except for sorrow ever. Like she is always down, sad. Like there's never been anything where it's eye contact with you or anything. And in reality, what we're learning is like she was a badass woman. Like she knew exactly what she was getting herself into, and she was a boss of, how many other women followers. So she was a strong woman. The fact that we only see her in artwork, sad. I don't think that that's accurate because I think she would have
She was
been proud.
powerful. She was
Yeah.
powerful. And not that she didn't feel immense sadness at the loss of him, but that
Yeah.
wasn't her defining moment or at all her definition. And what you just said, it kind of reminds me of how there's that new movie, Mary, out that is like from a mega Christian church
Hmm.
that like does very much separate casting systems and like that. It's from a church that wouldn't even let the people who were in the floods of Houston in their doors, and then they're pushing forward the story of who Mary was still
Yeah.
in a way that feeds their narrative, that feeds
Yeah.
the
I couldn't
narrative.
wait to see that movie because I was so curious about it. And man, it really was a disappointment. But at the very least, at least they kind of made her more relatable, like more human.
More human.
And also you feel bad for her. You're like, oh my God, this poor young woman, what she must have went through. Could you just imagine if somebody came to you, if an angel came to you and said, you're gonna give birth to, you'd be like, I don't think so. Like, not
Yeah, but it
today.
kind of makes me remember like how maybe you don't know from an early age what your purpose is, because then you would have too much stress around what your purpose is, right? That that she just was knew she was to be a servant to the divine is,
Mhm.
but even the way that they make it as if she was always still fighting between good and evil, that the good wasn't truly in her, or that she was not fully aware of the good, where maybe she was fully aware of the good the whole time. If she was really like the mother of Jesus, it's not like he rose up and taught her. Mothers
Yeah.
teach their children.
Yeah, and
Mothers teach their
she
children.
for her whole life she had to practice
Right. Practice
like
it.
different things that she had to do in order to be that pure.
And I do love too how we bring forward different stories of perhaps where Mary's teachings were from through the podcast and through the different speakers that we have over time. So
Mhm.
I love that about the Magdalene Rising Collective that we
I love it too because we
to
just
her.
stay open to all possibilities.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of the Magdalene Rising Collective, we have the Awakening program that we run regularly, that the wait list is open. It always sells out. So if you are interested in sitting in circle and going through Magdalene's gospel and kind of exploring these ideas in a circle format, a way where there's no patriarchal, like that's available all the time. And we have discussions like this all the
Yeah.
time in circle, where you get the time to speak your own mind around these ideas. And I adore that for,
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think our dates are will be starting January 27th on the next round. It's a 9-week program. And yeah, the last time we put it out there, it sold out and we had 2 sessions. And this time we're knocking it down to 1 session. So it's even less availability. So if anyone's interested in that, like highly, we'll drop the link
yeah,
to that
it's the
on the
Magdalene
podcast.
Rising Collective.com. You can find it as well. So make sure that you look it up if you're curious about sitting in circle. You can see I'm getting to the golden hour. Look at
You're
these
getting
shadows.
golden. Yeah,
I'm so
you
golden.
are.
Na, na,
You're
na,
such a
na,
beam
dun,
of
dun,
light.
na, na, na. Um, one of my favorite parts of the podcast so far with Marguerite is the bumper sticker moment. The bumper sticker moment. What's your bumper sticker?
What's your bumper sticker?
What's your bumper sticker?
What was my
Around
bumper
here, there's a lot of bumper stickers, and I was going to a dancing woman circle every Monday. I sound like I'm a California native. There's no New Yorker, doesn't belong in here. But it's so funny because leaving with all these Berkeley women, these Berkeley old ladies, and all the cars have bumper stickers, bumper stickers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no bumper sticker.
Right? No bumper
No
stickers here.
But there's a lot of coexist bumper stickers in my area. If I was gonna make a bumper sticker around Mary,
A sticker.
what would you like? Would you be?
I don't know. I can't come up with a good thing right now, but I will say the first thing I thought of is because I have a tramp stamp tattoo. That would be my bump. So my friends used to make fun of me because it's written in like Japanese or whatever, and they're like, "How do you know what that says?" Because it's supposed to be my name and Victor's name, and it says soulmates. And they were teasing me that it says, "I'm simple yet elegant." My bumper sticker would be simple yet elegant.
Across your ass? Do you think modern Mary would have a tramp stamp?
Oh, I mean, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
so. She would have one of those making all the way up the side of her, I think. She'd be a little risque.
she would certainly be in touch with who she was and what she wanted in this world.
I
Well,
think so.
I love to rehash it with you. Let's finish off our interview with Marguerite and let everyone enjoy the first half of the interview continued here now.
Yes, let's do it.
If you were intrigued by anything that you've heard here today, be sure to like and follow the podcast. And don't miss the continuation of this interview on the next episode.
And
Thank you so much
I
for
am the word that has been buried underground, the one the world has lost, and that soon will be found. And I am the hidden face of the moon, the untamed, in which the stars have elected the womb. And I will come back soon in the shape of a golden ring. Mary once again, the prince of the mighty king. And this day the world will drench in grace, when man and woman unite in one embrace. Follow the trace that I have left inside your heart.